The chilling November mist clung to the ancient oak trees, turning Willow Creek Cemetery into a canvas of sorrow. Desmond Sterling, at 58, the formidable head of Sterling Financial, stood before the freshly polished granite tomb of his daughter, Annalise. 3 years had passed since her sudden disappearance, leaving behind a void that no amount of corporate success could fill. He clutched a single white rose, its petals beaded with the damp. Then he saw it. Kneeling by Annalise's grave, a young black man in a worn delivery uniform gently rocked a small white child, both silently weeping. Desmond stopped abruptly, his perfectly manicured hand tightening around the rose stem. He'd never seen this man or child before, but the man's bowed head and the child's tender cries stirred a strange, unsettling echo in his chest. "Excuse me." Desmond's voice, usually a command, was laced with an unexpected tremor. "This is a private moment. You're intruding." The young man looked up, his eyes red-rimmed, but holding a quiet dignity. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know anyone else would be here today." His voice was soft, barely a whisper. "Who are you?" Desmond demanded, his ruthless business instincts kicking in. "And why are you crying at my daughter's grave?" The child, a boy of about 3, looked up at Desmond with wide, intelligent green eyes that seized Desmond's breath, eyes identical to Annalise's. Eyes he had seen in his own reflection for decades. "My name is Rhys Evans," the young man replied, wiping a tear from the child's cheek. "And this is Oscar. I work for a local courier service. I come here every month because," he hesitated, glancing at Oscar, "because Annalise was important to us." Desmond felt the ground shift beneath him. Annalise had vanished 3 years ago, age 26, presumed dead. He had scoured every aspect of her life, trying to piece together the fragments of his loss. There was no mention of serious relationships, certainly no child. The rose slipped from his grasp, falling unnoticed onto the cold stone. "Important how?" Desmond's voice dropped, a dangerous edge creeping in. The mist thickened, but none of them moved. Rhys met Desmond's gaze with a courage that surprised the billionaire. "Because Oscar is her son, and because I promised her I'd always take care of him, no matter what." 3 years. 3 years he'd mourned Annalise, believing his legacy ended with her. 3 years to discover he had a grandson, a white grandson, raised by a black delivery driver, living a life he couldn't have conceived. Yet there was something in Rhys's eyes that didn't fit with his simple story. A guardedness, a hidden fear, as if he held secrets far deeper than Oscar's existence. What Desmond didn't know was that this revelation was merely the first thread in a meticulously woven tapestry of lies and betrayals involving people very close to him. And that Rhys's apparent humility concealed a strength poised to shake the very foundations of Desmond's privileged world. If this tale of family secrets and unearthed truths stirs your soul, subscribe to find out how a chance encounter in a cemetery would unravel the biggest mystery in the life of one of the most powerful men in the country. 2 weeks after the cemetery encounter, Desmond had transformed his opulent home office into a command center. Private investigator reports littered the antique desk, each page detailing Rhys Evans' life, leaving Desmond increasingly perplexed. Single, no known close family, works 2 jobs, 70 hours a week, just to keep them afloat. Desmond muttered, flipping through the documents. Lives in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the industrial part of town. No formal education beyond high school. His longtime executive assistant, Mr. Finch, a black man, stood stiffly nearby. He'd seen Desmond dismantle rival corporations with less intensity than he showed now. And Oscar's mother? Desmond's icy blue eyes were fixed on a grainy photo of Oscar playing in a local park. "This is where it gets strange," Finch replied, opening a separate file. "We can't find a birth certificate, hospital records, or any official documentation for Oscar's biological mother. It's like she never existed." Desmond tapped his pen on the desk, a habit his board members had learned to dread. 3 years ago, after Annalise's disappearance, he'd investigated every detail of her life, searching for answers. He'd found no evidence of a child, no serious relationships at all. "Schedule a meeting with this Rhys," Desmond stated, pronouncing the name as if it were an inconvenient pest. "In my office tomorrow at 3. The next day, Reese arrived at Sterling Financial headquarters wearing his best and only suit, clearly a thrift store find. The 70-story glass tower seemed to mock him, reflecting a distorted version of his own strained face. Desmond greeted him in his top-floor office, where panoramic city views were a calculated display of power. Both men understood the unspoken intimidation. "Sit," Desmond commanded, gesturing to a low chair positioned to make Reese look up at him. "We need to discuss Oscar." Reese remained standing. "I prefer to stand, thank you." "As you wish." Desmond opened a folder on his desk. "I've looked into you, Mr. Evans. 2 jobs, no savings, living in conditions unsuitable for a child." "Oscar is well cared for and loved," Reese replied, his voice calm but firm. Desmond smiled, a chilling, humorless curve of his lips. "I'm sure you do your best, but a Sterling child deserves more than your best. He deserves the best money can buy." "And what exactly are you suggesting?" Reese's gaze was unwavering. $250,000, Desmond announced, sliding a signed check across the polished mahogany. "Oscar comes to live with me, gets the education he deserves. The future Annalise would have wanted for him. You can visit him on weekends, of course." Reese stared at the check as if it were a venomous snake. "Are you trying to buy my son?" "He's not your son," Desmond retorted, his mask of civility slipping. "He's my grandson, blood of my blood. And frankly, a black delivery driver in his 20s cannot offer him what a family like ours can. Family." Reese let out a short, bitter laugh. "Desmond, may I call you Desmond? You want to talk about family? Oscar has called me Dad for 3 years. I wake up with him in the middle of the night when he has nightmares. I teach him his ABCs at the kitchen table. I read him bedtime stories. That's family." Desmond rose, his imposing height towering over Reese. "Noble sentiments, but reality is harsh. You work like a dog to pay rent that probably eats up half your income. Oscar deserves private schools, trips around the world, opportunities you can never give him." "And he deserves unconditional love," Reese countered. "Something you clearly didn't give your own daughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Desmond felt as if he'd been struck. "How dare you? Annalise told me everything." Reese continued, his voice low but piercing. "About the missed recitals, the art shows you never attended, the birthdays where you sent expensive gifts through assistants. You want Oscar because he's a second chance to clear your conscience, not because you genuinely care about him." Desmond clenched his fists. "You don't know me." "No, but I knew your daughter, and I know exactly why she never mentioned Oscar to you." Reese picked up the check and tore it in half, the pieces fluttering to the floor like discarded autumn leaves. "Oscar isn't for sale." "Then we'll do this the hard way," Desmond seethed, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. "I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, investigators, connections at every level. I can prove that a single, uneducated black man living in poverty is not in the best interest of the child." Reese smiled for the first time since entering the office, and something in that smile made Desmond hesitate. "Desmond," Reese said softly, "you're assuming I'm just a poor delivery driver you can intimidate. But there are things about me, about Oscar, about Annalise, that you haven't discovered yet. And when you do," he paused, his eyes flashing with a determination that unnerved the billionaire. "Well, let's just say your investigators aren't as good as you think they are." He turned for the door, pausing only to look back over his shoulder. "And Desmond, the next time you want to talk about Oscar, it will be on my terms, not yours." After Reese left, Desmond stood alone in his office, the torn check fragments still on the floor. For the first time in decades, someone had walked away from a negotiation with him holding all the cards. What Desmond couldn't understand was why a simple delivery driver displayed such unshakable confidence. It was as if Reese knew something, some secret, some ace up his sleeve that rendered all of Desmond's threats and power irrelevant. Even more disturbing, for the first time in his life, Desmond Sterling felt as if he were being watched, studied, evaluated by someone who saw right through all his defenses and wasn't at all impressed with what he found on the other side. 3 days after the confrontation in the office, Desmond received a call that left him reeling. His lead attorney, Alistair Croft, a black man from the renowned firm Croft Associates, sounded noticeably flustered, an extreme rarity in their 25 years of partnership. "Desmond, I need to tell you something about the custody case," Croft said, his voice strained. "I got a call today. Mr. Evans' legal representation." "He hired a lawyer?" Desmond scoffed, drumming his fingers on his desk. "With what money? It must be some unprepared public defender." "Actually," Croft paused, "it's Maxwell, Grant & Pierce. They're representing him pro bono." Desmond nearly dropped his crystal glass of water. Maxwell, Grant & Pierce was one of the country's top 3 law firms, specializing in civil liberties cases and famed for never losing a major court battle. That's impossible. Why would they be interested in some delivery driver? "I don't know," Croft admitted, "but there's more. They've already filed a preemptive petition claiming any attempt to forcibly remove the child would constitute legal kidnapping based on socio-economic discrimination." Desmond slammed the phone down hard enough to crack the receiver. Reese had played his first card, and it was a far more powerful one than Desmond had ever imagined possible. Meanwhile, in Reese's modest apartment, a very different meeting was taking place. The small living room was crowded with people Desmond Sterling would never have expected to find there. Dr. Rosalind Hayes, a respected black professor of constitutional law from New York University, investigative journalist Omar Jenkins, a black man known for his exposés on corporate malfeasance, and at the center of it all, an elegant white woman in her early 50s whom Reese treated with obvious affection and respect. "Aunt Sarah," Reese said, embracing the woman warmly. "Thank you for coming. I know you had a long flight from Atlanta." Sarah Peterson smiled, her intelligent eyes sparkling with the same quiet fire Reese had shown in Desmond's office. "When you called and said the time had finally come, I canceled everything. We've been waiting for this moment for 3 years." Oscar played quietly on the rug, oblivious to the gravity of the conversation around him. Dr. Hayes opened a thick folder filled with documents and photographs. "Reese, are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. "Once we start, there's no turning back. Desmond Sterling has immense resources and will not hesitate to use all of them." "Dr. Hayes," Reese replied, his voice calm but resolute, "I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Every night class I've taken, every legal journal I've devoured, every contact I've cultivated, it's all been to protect Oscar and honor Annalise's memory." Omar Jenkins looked up from his laptop. "The evidence you've gathered is staggering, Reese. 3 years of meticulously documenting Sterling Financial's questionable business practices, including hidden offshore accounts and systematic employee exploitation." Sarah walked over to the window, looking out at the humble view from the apartment. "Desmond thinks his wealth makes him untouchable. He has no idea that my nephew has spent the last 3 years studying his every move, every dirty deal, every tax evasion scheme." Aunt Sarah taught business law at Oxford University for 25 years. Reese explained to Dr. Hayes. "She's the one who taught me that knowledge is the only weapon they can't buy or steal from you." Reese's phone rang. It was Desmond, clearly enraged. "What game are you playing?" Desmond yelled into the speaker. "Maxwell, Grant, and Pierce. How does a delivery driver get lawyers of that caliber?" Reese put the phone on speaker, allowing everyone in the room to hear. "Desmond, I warned you there were things about me you hadn't discovered yet. I don't care what tricks you're using. Oscar is my grandson and I have unlimited resources to get what I want." "Unlimited resources?" Reese smiled, looking at his assembled allies. "Desmond, you're assuming that money is the only kind of power there is. But what if I told you there's something much more powerful?" "And what would that be?" Desmond's voice dripped with disdain. "The truth." Desmond laughed dismissively. "Truth doesn't pay expensive lawyers." "You're right," Reese agreed. "But the truth about your illegal business dealings, about how you built your empire through fraudulent contracts and systematic bribery, that truth is worth much more than money to certain people." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "You're bluffing," Desmond finally said, but his voice had lost its previous confidence. Omar Jenkins from the London Standard would like to speak with you, Rees said, handing the phone to the journalist. Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling, Omar said, his voice calmly professional. I'm finalizing an investigative series on questionable corporate practices. I'd like to give you the opportunity to comment on the allegations we've documented. Desmond hung up immediately. Sarah smiled, a proud glint in her eyes. Rees, you've learned well. Never attack head on when you can flank. Dr. Hayes closed her briefcase. The legal strategy is solid. We have precedents where attempts to remove children based purely on socio-economic status have been deemed discriminatory. And I have 3 years of research on every dirty deal Desmond has ever made. Omar added, contracts with shell companies, suspicious payments to public officials, covered-up environmental violations, enough to destroy any reputation. Rees picked up Oscar, the boy smiling innocently at the adults surrounding him. What Desmond doesn't understand is that I'm not just fighting for Oscar. I'm fighting against a system that believes money buys everything, including the right to destroy families. Sarah approached, placing her hand on Rees's shoulder. Your parents would be so proud of you, son. They always said that education was the only inheritance no one could ever take away from you. Aunt Sarah raised me after my parents died, Rees explained to the others. She taught me that it doesn't matter where you come from, but where you're going. And she taught me that sometimes to protect what you love, you have to be willing to go to war. The phone rang again. This time it was Desmond's lawyer. Mr. Evans, my client would like to propose a settlement. $750,000 in supervised visits. Rees looked at his allies, all subtly shaking their heads. Mr. Croft, tell your client that Oscar is not for sale at any price. And tell him he has 48 hours to withdraw any legal threats against our family, or else. On Monday morning, the London Standard will publish a full series on the questionable business practices of Sterling Financial. And I'm sure His Majesty's Revenue and Customs will be very interested in some of the documents we've obtained. After hanging up, Omar smiled. Rees, are you ready for this? Once we publish, Desmond will use all his remaining power against you. Rees looked at Oscar, who was now sleeping peacefully in his arms. Omar, I've lived for 3 years knowing this day would come. Desmond thinks his wealth makes him invincible, but he's never faced anyone who's had time to prepare properly. Dr. Hayes stood up, gathering her papers. The legal petition will be filed tomorrow. The precedents are on our side. Sarah kissed Rees's forehead. Remember, son, they may have the money, but we have the truth. That night, while Oscar slept, Rees opened a worn wooden trunk in his room. Inside were diplomas from Knight Law School, certificates from management programs, letters of recommendation from renowned professors, and, at the bottom, a faded photograph of him with Annalise and a young white woman with kind eyes, the photograph Desmond had never seen. The photograph that explained not only who Oscar's mother was, but why Rees had prepared so meticulously for this confrontation. Desmond Sterling was about to discover that underestimating someone could be the most costly mistake a person could make, and that sometimes the sweetest victory didn't come through force, but through patience, preparation, and the perfect moment to reveal truths that some people would do anything to keep buried. What Desmond didn't know yet was that the battle for Oscar's custody was only the first move in a much bigger game, a game Rees had been planning since the day Annalise vanished, and one that was about to expose secrets that could destroy not only Desmond's reputation, but the entire empire he had built on lies. On Monday morning, Desmond woke up to 42 missed calls on his private cell phone. His assistant, Mr. Finch, was outside his bedroom door holding a tablet with an expression he had never seen before, genuine terror. Desmond, you need to see this, he stammered, handing him the device with trembling hands. The headline of the London Standard filled the screen. Empire built on shadows. Leaked documents revealed decades of crimes at Sterling Financial. Desmond felt his legs give way. Below the headline, dozens of scanned documents showed fraudulent contracts, illegal payments to politicians, and intricate money laundering schemes. Each page was a death sentence for his legacy. How did they get this? He whispered, frantically scrolling through the article. There were photographs of secret meetings he was sure no one had documented, and recordings of conversations that should have been private. His phone rang. It was Alistair Croft, his lawyer. "Desmond, it's a complete disaster," Croft stated bluntly. "His Majesty's Revenue and Customs has already issued search warrants. The National Crime Agency is on its way to your home. And there's more. The Financial Conduct Authority has suspended all trading of Sterling Financial stock." Desmond hung up and immediately called Reese, his hands shaking with rage and despair. "You?" he screamed when Reese answered. "You did this? How dare you destroy my life?" "Good morning, Desmond," Reese replied, his voice as calm as a summer breeze. "I imagine you've read the news." "I'll destroy you. I'll use every resource I have to—" "What resources?" Reese interrupted softly. "Because from what I'm seeing here on the news, your bank accounts were frozen 15 minutes ago." Desmond rushed to his computer, his hands frantically typing passwords into banking websites. "Access denied, access denied, access denied," he muttered. "This is impossible." "Desmond, there's something your investigators didn't mention," Reese continued. "Omar Jenkins doesn't work alone. He has a team specializing in financial forensics. Every document you've fraudulently signed in the last 20 years has been meticulously tracked." The television in the living room showed reporters swarming the Sterling Financial building. Employees were leaving, carrying boxes, their careers shattered in a single morning. The name he had built over decades was being smeared live on national television. "Why?" Desmond asked, his voice breaking. "Why do this to me?" "Because you never asked about Oscar's mother," Reese said simply. "If you had, you would have found out that her name was Beatrice Sterling." Desmond's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. Beatrice was the daughter of Kenneth Sterling, your cousin. The same cousin you betrayed in 1997 to steal his share of the family business." The memories flooded back. Kenneth, young and hopeful, signing documents Desmond had subtly altered. The bitter family feud Desmond had won through lies and manipulation. Kenneth's quiet expulsion from their lives. "Beatrice grew up in poverty because of your betrayal," Reese continued. "She met Annalise in university. They fell in love, but Beatrice was afraid to tell Annalise who she truly was, knowing you would cut Annalise out of your life, just like you did to Beatrice's father." Desmond vaguely remembered Kenneth mentioning a daughter before disappearing from their lives. "When Beatrice died during childbirth, Annalise came to me in desperation. I was Beatrice's best friend, and Annalise knew Beatrice wanted me to take care of Oscar. But Annalise also discovered the truth about what you did to Beatrice's family, and she found out something much darker, Desmond, something that would have destroyed your entire empire." "Annalise knew?" Desmond whispered, the reality crashing down on him. "She spent the last months of her life investigating you, Desmond, gathering evidence of your most heinous crimes. When she vanished, it wasn't an accident," Reese said calmly. "Annalise uncovered a major money laundering scheme involving dangerous international cartels. People you hired to take care of problems. They murdered your own daughter, Desmond, to silence her." The revelation hit Desmond like a physical blow. Annalise had disappeared because she had uncovered his crimes. He had effectively killed his own daughter through his insatiable greed. "Oscar is the last legitimate Sterling," Reese continued. "Beatrice was the legal heir to a fortune you stole. And now, with all your accounts frozen and your company confiscated, Oscar has finally got what was always his." Desmond heard heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. Authoritative voices shouted, "National Crime Agency, open up." "You planned this for 3 years," Desmond whispered, finally understanding the magnitude of what had happened. "Beatrice taught me that patience is the key to true justice," Reese replied. "Every document I collected, every course I took, every contact I cultivated, all for this moment." The door burst open. Federal agents entered with arrest warrants. "Desmond Sterling, you're under arrest for tax fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder." As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Desmond heard Reese one last time. "Oscar will grow up knowing the truth about his family. He'll know that justice, even when it's slow, always comes." Television cameras captured Desmond being led away in handcuffs. His empire, built on lies, crumbled in a matter of hours, broadcast live to millions. That afternoon, Reese sat in the local park with Oscar, watching him play on the swings. His phone rang. It was Aunt Sarah. "Son, I saw the news. How do you feel?" "Like Annalise and Beatrice can finally rest in peace," Reese replied, watching Oscar laugh as he soared towards the sky. "And Oscar will grow up knowing that his family fought for justice, not revenge." What Desmond had discovered too late was that Reese wasn't just a determined delivery driver. He was the guardian of a stolen legacy, a man who had turned 3 years of quiet preparation into the most perfect execution of justice the courts had ever witnessed. 2 years later, the Longford Men's State Prison was a stark contrast to the penthouse offices Desmond had once commanded. Dressed in a standard orange jumpsuit, he worked in the prison kitchen, scrubbing floors for a meager wage, an irony that was not lost on him. "Sterling, you have a visitor," the guard announced. Desmond expected to see his former lawyer or perhaps a tabloid journalist. Instead, he found Reese in the visiting room, elegantly dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that cost more than Desmond earned in 6 months. "I've come with news," Reese stated, his voice calm and confident. "Oscar has just been accepted at Eton College, the same school Annalise attended, full scholarship." Desmond felt a peculiar twinge, perhaps a flicker of what might have been pride. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're his grandfather," Reese replied. "And because Oscar asked me if bad people can become good." Reese paused, his gaze steady. "I told him it depended on whether they truly wanted to change." Reese opened a folder showing photographs of Oscar smiling broadly in his school uniform. "He's learning the cello just like his mother. His teacher says he's a natural." "How can you afford all this?" Desmond's voice was thin. Reese smiled with genuine satisfaction. "The fortune you stole from Beatrice's family was returned by the courts. Oscar is now the heir to the entire legitimate Sterling estate. Ironic, isn't it?" Desmond closed his eyes. "And you? What did you get out of all this?" "I got the chance to give Oscar what you never gave Annalise. A family that puts love above money." Reese stood up. "And the peace of knowing that Beatrice and Annalise can finally rest." "Oscar, is he happy?" Desmond asked, a raw vulnerability in his voice. "He's loved," Reese replied, "and that's all that ever mattered." Meanwhile, Oscar ran through the sprawling garden of his new countryside home, a beautiful property overlooking the Sussex Downs. Reese watched from the porch, a framed master's degree in law from the Open University hanging proudly on the wall inside. "Dad, can I play my cello for you?" Oscar shouted, running towards the house. "Of course, my love," Reese replied, thinking of how proud Annalise and Beatrice would be. Sarah Peterson visited regularly, sharing family stories that Oscar carried with pride. "Aunt Sarah taught me that the best justice isn't destroying your enemies," Reese had explained to Oscar, "but building something so beautiful that they regret not being a part of it." Oscar would grow up knowing that his family had fought for dignity, not just revenge. That even when the world seemed unfair, there was always a clever way to rewrite the narrative. Desmond had tried to buy a grandson, but he had discovered that family cannot be bought. It is built through love and presence. He had lost everything because he confused power with value, money with dignity. Reese's real victory was not just destroying Desmond. It was building a future where Oscar would never repeat the mistakes of the previous generation, where a child would grow up knowing that identity is not defined by skin color or bank account, but by strength of character and the bonds of true family. Desmond tried to use his money to steal Oscar, but he discovered that true love is priceless. Reese proved that persistence and intelligence always win over arrogance and prejudice. Have you ever faced someone who tried to diminish your dreams because of your origins? Leave a comment about how you reacted, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true family is built with love, not